Good afternoon, everyone. We are coming to you from the west of Ireland. I'm in Galway, and Janine is in Letterkenny in County Donegal. So, as advertised, we decided to come together and talk to you about all things branding and, in particular, on social media. So, we are currently broadcasting live on LinkedIn and also on YouTube. We really want your insights, your questions, your feedback. So if you have any right throughout, you can leave a comment wherever you're viewing, and I will be able to see it. I'm really thrilled to be joined by Janine Sullivan from JKS Design in Letterkenny in County Donegal. And I go way back, way back. I would say, gosh, over 15 years at this stage, Janine. You're 15 years in business yourself, but 29 years in the industry. So I don't think there's anything that you don't know about branding. But thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me, Joanne. Really appreciate it.
So for the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to hand the reins over to you, and you are going to give us a presentation. And after that, we will open the virtual floor for questions. So over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you. So my name is Janine Sullivan. My company is called JKS Design, like Joanne just said. So let me see the first slide. So a bit about me. So I have been in the industry, working in the industry 29 years. So I have 29 years experience under my belt in the design industry. My backstory would have been originally in print design. And then when I started my own company, I branched out into digital. So doing front-end web design and social media. So I specialize in visual identity and branding. So that would be my key niche. So logos, and then the additional branding, that the logo will be the key kind of thing in your visual identity, and then the rest of your visual identity as well. I'll go into that further on in the slides. Editorial design, so reports, books, brochures, and also packaging design. So that would be for companies that have products. I am very experienced in doing packaging design as well. I've worked in agencies for 14 years, and then I set up my own business in 2009. I offer a full design service, so I can do marketing materials, expo design, signage, livery, web design, and I've also started doing Canvas templates as well for companies that want to use them for their social media. I am hugely, anybody that knows me and works with me knows that I'm hugely passionate about design and eternally curious about it, about the whole world of design. It's definitely my first love. But my other loves would be my family, my dogs, music, comedy, travel, and the ocean. So they're all other things that I'm very passionate about outside of work. So what we're going to cover today is, what is a brand? What is branding? Why branding is important, and how to utilize your branding effectively for social media. So this is something that people get very confused about, so I just want to clear this up. So is this a brand? Is this? Are these brands? They're not brands, actually. A lot of people say, yeah, that's a brand, that's a brand. They're not. They're actually logos. So branding is so much more than just your logo. So these are all logos, very well-known logos. So what is a brand? So a brand is the idea or image that comes to mind when thinking about the products, services, and activities of a company in both a physical and emotional way. This combination of cues is triggered when a person is exposed to all the touch points of the brand, such as the brand name, the logo, the products, the visual identity, the staff, the advertising, and so on. So all of them together are actually the brand, not just the logo. So here's an example using Apple. So you're very familiar with the Apple logo, but the Apple packaging is also part of their branding. The products are their brand, and also this is their advertising. I thought this was a great one to explain kind of how they use kind of the tone of voice and the emotion and the brand personality to advertise how they would place their brand in the market. So they're basically saying that people that have a PC are boring, and they're being accountants and people that maybe are very serious, whereas they're trying to get across that the Mac is kind of the cool dude. So think of Mark Zuckerberg kind of style, a t-shirt, cardigan, very casual, but very into tech, and very cool. So they're kind of stationing their brand as being the cool dude on the market as opposed to the boring PC. And then Coca-Cola, again, a very common one that people are very familiar with. So again, their brand name is part of their branding, as well as their logo, their visual identity, their color, their fonts. That's what visual identity is. It's just more than the logo. It's the color, it's the fonts that are used, their products, their packaging, their website, their bottle shape, which is iconic, very well known. That's also part of their brand. So they have that trademarked. The advertising, the Santa truck, again, that will be part of their branding. The tone of voice and their brand personality. So like Open Happiness, they're very about joy and feeling good, and that's how they would advertise and promote their branding and their product. So branding is the process of building a brand. It is a strategy which companies use to help people quickly identify their products, services, and organization, and give people a reason to choose their products and services over the competition. So a branding strategy clarifies what a particular brand is, and probably more important, what a particular brand is not. So this is a very good visual here to kind of really explain the difference between the logo and branding. So the logo is only one component in the overall branding. So you can see here that it fits into like a build. So you build your brand. So you would have your logo, your marketing materials, TV ads, social media, your store design, your web, your print collateral, your slogan, packaging, your product placement, signage, events. That's all branding. It's not just the logo, that's the brand. So a good way to describe this, I think, is a good way to explain it is kind of think of your brand as a person. So if you think of your logo is the face of the brand, so that's the first thing that people normally see when they kind of come across the brand, and then it's also the first thing that they'll probably remember. So if you meet a person in real life, that's the first thing you see is their face, and it's probably the first thing you're going to remember when you meet them as well. Again, so if you met them again in a second meeting, you would kind of go, oh, I remember meeting this person from their face. It's kind of the way the human brain works. So again, this is where the logo ties in. It's so important to your branding because it's probably the thing that people will remember first and see first. Then you would have your tone of voice. So your voice would be the brand tone and the personality of your brand. And then your heart of your brand is kind of like your brand values. So where you're coming from and what you're projecting in terms of what the company is about. And then other elements of your branding, I've said here, is like your clothing. So if you think about what the person wears, it'd be like their clothes. So that would come down to like the imagery that you use for your branding and also your packaging and things like that. So it's the things that are clothing the body. So your logo is usually the first thing that people see and the first thing that people will remember, which is why it's so crucial to get your logo and visual identity right at the start as part of it. It's a key part of your overall branding. And then the voice, this is something that Google have on their brand book. They have said that their voice is more than their writing. It's the tone of everything that they do. So again, it's about being consistent in your branding and making sure that you're on tone as well as on, visually on brand. And then the Brand Journal have said that the success of a brand can often rest on the values at its heart and how authentically they are expressed and communicated. So authenticity, again, is a very key part of your overall branding, and I'll speak about that in a wee while as well. So why is branding important? Well, I've kind of split this into the private sector and the public sector because although they're similar, they're slightly different. So in the private sector, the main purpose of branding is to stand out in a competitive market, to build customer loyalty and to drive profitability. So again, it's to sell their products. Branding helps companies distinguish themselves from competitors. So they're looking for that differentiation in the market. A strong brand conveys unique values, qualities, and experiences that attract customers over alternatives. So it's about, wanting people to engage and choose your brand over another brand. Customer loyalty and trust. A well-established brand fosters trust, which leads to customer loyalty. People buy from brands they know and trust, and positive experiences reinforce this loyalty, creating a dependable customer base. Perceived value and pricing power. Especially this is very important in the private sector. A strong brand can enhance the perceived value of a product or service, allowing a company to command premium pricing. Customers are often willing to pay for brands they perceive as higher quality or socially responsible. So think for Apple, for example, like think of the price point of their products versus other competitors in the market, like how they can charge that premium price. And it's all about how they brand their product and how they sell their product, their tone of voice, their packaging, their whole consumer experience, even things like unboxing an Apple product. They've thought of their branding at every touch point. And that packaging as well comes into play a lot with companies that sell products, because what happens is if the packaging is a luxury kind of packaging, your perception of what's contained within that packaging is going to be perceived as it's a luxury product. It could be a bog standard product, which generally isn't the case, but it could be a bog standard product in a luxury packaging, and you would interpret that as being this product is going to be, a luxury product because it's contained in a luxury packaging. So it's how we perceive things, and this is where branding is so crucial. Employee engagement. Branding isn't just outward facing. Internally, a strong brand helps attract and retain talent. Employees are more likely to stay with companies whose values and mission align with their own. So brand loyalty extends to employees and brand advocates as well as to their target market. And then growth and expansion. So a strong brand is also an asset when expanding into new markets or launching new products, as brand recognition can help ease customer acceptance in unfamiliar regions or product categories. So this is where your branding, if your branding is on point at every touch point, you're kind of reinforcing your branding, you're really getting into the minds of the consumers and they get to know you really well. And if you move into a new market, you've already kind of set the groundwork there, because if somebody comes across a new product, where are they going to look to find out about you? It's probably online. So they're going to check your social media, they're going to check your website, and all your branding will have already been built there, and they're really going to get a sense of what the brand is about and who it's for and what it does. So branding objectives in the private sector, to be seen. So you want to stand out amongst the competition, show value. So you're trying to show the benefits of the product or service, drive sales. So encourage the target market to purchase from you, create connection, use emotion to appeal, persuade, and influence. So like that's the purchasing power. And then build customer loyalty, create a community of fans. So that's another key thing in social media, especially, is that you can really generate this kind of community of people, because they're able to engage with you a lot easier than maybe through your website. It's kind of almost instant. They can direct message you, they can like your posts. So that's a really good way of building that customer loyalty, is creating a community of fans of your product. So then the public sector, it differs slightly. So in the public sector, the main purpose of branding is to create trust, communicate value to the public. So this would be like your services and your offerings in terms of like what the company is about. Enhance engagement. Again, it's that whole thing about being able to contact you a lot easier. It's an easy means of getting in touch with you and engaging with you. Transparency, I think, which is very important for the public sector. So it can really show like it's that kind of personable touch, I think, on social media that comes across, that you can really show there's a person behind the company, so because they're interacting with a person behind the social media, they get that. And then improve public perception and support the organization's mission. So again, you want to try and control the narrative of how you're perceived, and you can do that very well on social media. So building trust and credibility, this is key, I think, for public service agencies and organizations. They need to earn the public's trust to function effectively, and a consistent and positive brand fosters credibility, making people more likely to trust their services and information. Increased engagement and participation. So strong branding in the public sector can enhance engagement by making services more accessible, relatable and transparent. So you can tell people very easily on social media, and you can really promote what your services are and how they can get them, and also that personable touch again. Effective public service branding makes citizens feel connected to initiatives, which is critical for participation in programs, public health and community development. So that's kind of going back to the fans idea of in the private sector. In the public sector, it's about kind of that community feel. We're all in this together. We can help each other. We're going to buy into this. We're going to save the environment. We're going to, like, you think of things like tidy towns, or like keep our county or our town tidy. Those kind of things can be projected very well on social media to kind of get people to buy into that scheme. Promoting awareness and education. So branding can effectively convey important information and promote awareness of public services and programs. So consistent, which is key, branded communication can help citizens better understand policies, recognize services, and know where to go for assistance. So there's two key things here, especially when you're promoting awareness and education, is consistency and also recognition. So you want to make sure that your branding is consistent, because then that garners recognition. So every time they see something that you put out in social media, they'll immediately recognize it from the key kind of triggers in the brain, be it the logo, the colors, the visual identity. And then the awareness then comes from that. So they immediately buy into that, but you need to be consistent so that they know that. Attracting partnerships and funding. A strong public sector brand can help attract partnerships with private sector organizations, nonprofits, or other agencies. It can also enhance funding opportunities by establishing the organization as a reliable steward of resources. So, for example, charities, if they're looking to kind of get sponsorship from private companies, again, if they have a very strong branding and very strong social media platform, that these private sector companies can go and see what they do, what they're about. It really gives a good idea and background to who they are and what they do and how they engage with the public. And that will help the private sector then to kind of get on board. Fostering national community pride. So again, this is back to what I was saying earlier. In the public sector, branding can also strengthen community identity and national pride. Whether for a city or country, a well-branded public image can bring people together and encourage them to support common goals such as environmental sustainability or social welfare programs. So again, it's that whole thing about community, but it's a public community as opposed to like a community of fans of a product. It's a community of people together that will help each other. So the public sector branding objectives would be trust. This is key, to create and nurture the trust of the general public. Communicate, educate and promote awareness, and that can be done very effectively through things like infographics and graphic visuals to clearly explain to people what it's about that you're trying to tell them, whatever the thing is you're trying to tell them. But you can do that clearly with graphics and infographics to explain data and information very easily, and then maybe get them to engage and sign up. Engagement, again, supports stronger, more meaningful engagement, because again, it's an easier place for people to connect. So if they see a graphic or a visual on your social media and it resonates with them, they may reach out, they may like, they may share, and they may actually send direct messages or inquire about more information. So it's a very key way of getting that engagement. Aid transparency through clear communication. So again, this is things like your infographics and your visuals to explain what you do and what you're about, and your tone of voice as well is key here to explain to the people that you're trying to target who you are and what you do and why you want them to do whatever your ask is. Improve perception and support mission. So it's a good way of being able to control the narrative, so that you make sure that you're perceived in a positive way and not a negative way, and again, get them to support your mission. So how to effectively utilize your branding for social media. Consistency. So consistency is key. I can't hark on about this enough. Trust, consistency. If you're consistent with your branding, so every time something pops up on their social media feed, that they immediately, like within seconds, can identify that it's you and who you are about. It really sends a message that you're a strong company, you know what you're talking about, and that it's well run. So if you think about interviewing possible employees, and you have like 5 employees turn up for an interview, and one person is well dressed and their hair is brushed and they're just nicely turned out, you're more likely to be interested and you have a conversation with them than maybe the person that looks like they just sort of thrown on the nearest t-shirt they could find, crawled out of bed. Like, you're going to immediately mistrust them. You're going to say, right, this person isn't serious about what they're doing. They're not really interested in working for me. Can I trust them? Like, why would I buy into them versus the person that's made the effort? So it's the brand consistency shows that you're making the effort to speak to your target market, and then it makes them trust you and be loyal to you and also recognize you really easily. Authenticity, again, also combined with consistency, and being authentic about what you're saying and doing, it really helps to build that trust and retain that trust and credibility. So again, people will think to themselves, well, this company knows what they're doing, they understand what I need, they're well run, they can support me in whatever I need support with. And it also builds that connection because it feels like you're speaking to them. It's like a really good way of having like a personable side to the organization on social media, because it is that connection of being able to, you feel like you're becoming a part of the fan community or the overall social community. So this is a very good example of effective use of branding on social media. During the COVID-19 outbreak, I was very interested in how different agencies were communicating over social media, because we weren't able to kind of get out and about during the lockdowns. It was really crucial that this information was available to the public in an easy form, and also that it explained really well what the government and the HSE were asking us to do. So March 2020 was the full lockdown of the COVID-19 pandemic in Ireland, and it saw an immediate increase in activity across all the HSE social media channels, driven by the public's concern and feelings of uncertainty, resulting in a huge appetite for information on the virus, me being one of those people. The HSE's content design team worked with specialists in public health medicine and the HSE Live call centre staff in a coordinated way to ensure that all of their communications were consistent across all channels. So again, no matter what channel you were using, as soon as you seen this, you knew this is from the HSE, this is about COVID-19. What are they asking me to do? What are they telling me about the virus? What do I need to know? The social media team daily noted any themes from questions they received through their social media channels and shared this information with the wider digital team to highlight gaps in their online information and ensure their online content was informing the public in a meaningful and informative way. The purpose designed COVID-19 visual identity in a striking black and yellow, so the one with the little kind of virus symbol. It was on everything, so there was no way you were mistaken as to what this was being spoken about. And their visual identity then was their fonts, their colours. It was the black and the yellow. It was very clearly demonstrated through all their social media. So the striking black and yellow colour palette used a clear and illustrative logo mark coupled with a clean and friendly type style. So the type style was clear, but I don't know if you've noticed, but it had a slight roundedness to it so that it wasn't overly kind of serious. It had a softness to it. So yes, they were telling you it's an important information, but at the same time, we're really not trying to scare you. It was used, their visual identity was used consistently across all channels, and it had a personal and empathetic tone of voice, which I think was key. And as a result, the HSE received a lot of positive feedback from the public, showing its efforts were an effective and trusted means of communication. They had really nice visuals. They had really nice infographics, like the one shown here about the how to wear a face covering. They've actually brought in like a comical element about, you know, how to get it right, how to get it wrong. So they're not telling people, no, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. It's like, oh, no, it's not really there. Try again. And it was a wee bit kind of more friendly than like, you know, do this, do that, do what you're told kind of situation. And on the back of that campaign, from February 2020 to December 2020, their Instagram audience grew from 5k to 81k, which is huge. And their Facebook audience grew by over 55k and saw a huge increase in engagement with 70,000 plus comments. So you could see the way that because their branding was on point, it was consistent, it was clear. when people seen it, they knew it was from the HSE and what they were, and they knew it was about COVID-19. And then they knew that they could go to those social media channels if they had questions or fears or whatever it may be. And I really think it helped the general public in Ireland, because the HSE had really done a great job with this campaign. And then we're going to get to, just for the day that's in it, I just thought I'd throw that Halloween mask in there. But the scary result of poor branding management on social media. So this can actually be really detrimental. This is why I'm always saying you can't really put enough emphasis on branding, brand consistency, and getting your branding right, because social media is such a visual platform. So you really need to make sure that you're communicating well on social media. So if you're not consistent with your branding, it's going to drive confusion, mistrust, and suspicion. People are going to be like, why is it like this? Why is it like that? But why are they doing it like that? They're going to be questioning it. They're going to be going, I don't know if I can trust this company. Like, do they really know what they're talking about? And then suspicion, like, why isn't it the same? Why isn't it, consistent? So here's an example, a direct contrast actually to the HSE. So this was the UK government NHS campaign during the COVID-19 pandemic. And in stark contrast to the effective use of branding with the HSE and the Irish government during the pandemic, their UK counterparts did not do so well, and were actually slated by the British press about this. Ronan Moore of The Guardian said there was no consistency in the design, and that the graphics used on social media and elsewhere were all over the place, and referenced the government's 5-level COVID-19 system, which is, you can see here on the top right. Their COVID-19 alert system, which was quickly likened by the general public to Nando's spicy chicken periometer, which measures the spiciness of chicken. The Treasury announcement signed like a celebrity endorsement, which is the one bottom right. Rishi Sunak signed it off like it was like a collab. It was so bad. It was like, when you see things like on social media from private sector companies where they're advertising a product and it's in collab with this makeup artist or this celebrity, this is the kind of style that Rishi Sunak was putting out there with his signature at the bottom. It was terrible. And then the other key thing that they did, which was really bad in terms of communication, was they had everything in all caps, which makes it harder to take in information. And Ronan Moore continues, the colours, font and layout of the different announcements vary widely and are at odds with the usual sober graphics of government departments. They are part of a more general haphazardness in the government's visual imagery. So what he was saying was that it was completely off brand for what was normally being projected by the British government and the NHS. You can see here this visual in the middle. It's from their Instagram grid at the time, and you can see there's absolutely no consistency. The two images in the middle, yes, do have slight consistency in that they're the same campaign. They've got the black and red on the yellow band text, but then there's no connection to the other four on the grid. Like, if you looked at that, it looks like it doesn't look like a huge global or a huge British public entity. Like, normally they should be on, like, they have huge teams working behind this. That should have been well thought out. It should have been consistent. Like, it really shows that there was no thought in. It's like, what graphic can we put for this? What graphic can we put for that? It looked like they were just pulling it from every angle they could, and there was no clear communication, no clear consistency in terms of their branding. And it really does, when you log on to that, it really does kind of make you feel, nervy and kind of unsettled. Like, why is it so all over the place? Do they really know what they're talking about? Do they really know what they're doing? This is the government and the NHS. They should be helping us in this emergency, and it looks like they haven't a clue what they're doing from their social media. Simon Esterson of iMagazine said, if it's essential to deliver clear messages, then the clarity of their visual presentation is also important. So again, it was a really serious time, and they really should have been thinking about how they were communicating this information instead of just like drafting up something really quickly and just throwing it up on the grid or throwing it up on stories. Their poor use of colour and understanding of colour psychology. This is another key thing actually here. One of the fundamentals of good design is referenced by Eliza Williams of Creative Review, when she mentioned that they stay alert, control the virus, save lives. So the graphic on the bottom left there, it uses green, which is normally a color in brand psychology about growth. It's a positive color. It's about go, move, forward. Those are all the things that the human brain thinks about when it sees the color green. And what they were actually trying to tell us to do during the COVID-19 pandemic was stay home, don't be moving around. Try and keep within your 3K or whatever it was at the time. So really, they should have been using a color like red, because if you think of the kind of even things like traffic light situation, like that's why those colors are used for traffic lights. Is green is go, red is stop, amber is get ready. So yeah, they should have been using red there to show that it's serious, to stop, take notice. Even things like road signs, again, they use red for stop. And going back to the HSE, they used yellow and black, which again is used in road signs, but it's normally used in road signs for information signs. So it's important. It's a road sign, it's important, but it's an information sign. So they weren't really trying to scare people. So they weren't going down the route of red, like panic, danger. They were being very careful with their choice of colours, whereas the NHS really didn't seem to have, it looked like they didn't have a clue about what they were doing, to be perfectly honest. And also just to mention this graphic on the bottom right, it's really poorly designed in that they've used all caps, but they've actually broken up the message with the text. So it actually reads, well, it could be interpreted in two different ways, or three actually. If you were to read it from top to bottom, you're going to read, "We stand coronavirus job retention scheme extended together." That's the way the human brain would read that. But then because they've coloured it, sometimes the brain can kind of say, okay, it's categorized. So I read one colour and then I read the other colour. So if you were to do that, it would be "We stand together," or "Coronavirus job retention scheme extended," and then "We stand together." So either or, depending on the hierarchy. But the problem with that is, like, you really have to work it out. It's almost like a puzzle. And we shouldn't be having to work out what this is trying to tell us. It should have been clear, concise, and on brand, and not trying to do like flipping crosswords to try and figure out what we need to do in an emergency. So it was really badly done. So I'm not surprised the British press say to them. So how to be consistent. This is a good guide to show you how to be consistent. So you should have a visual identity. When you get your logo designed, your graphic designer should create a visual identity. So the visual identity will show you your logos in different formats and different shapes so that it can suit all eventuality everywhere that it needs to go. And it also should be supplied for print and for screen, because different colors show differently on different formats. Because on screen, we use light to create the color, and then in print, we use white paper to create the color. So they're two totally different formats and two totally different systems. So you need to have a format for screen and you need to have a format for print, because what happens is if you try and use an image that's colored, especially that's supposed to be for print, and you use it on screen, or vice versa, the colors do not display properly. So that's why it's crucial that you have a visual identity system, where you have your logos for your print and you have your logos for your screen, and you make sure you're using the right format for the right purpose. And then you'll have rules in your visual identity about it will show you should have a brand guidelines, which is also part of your visual identity, and that will show you what you should and shouldn't do, and it should give you kind of key information about how to use your logo and your other brand elements when you're using whatever purpose you're using, on it be print or screen. Other components for your visual identity is your color palette. So again, make sure you're using the right colors at all times, and also the right fonts, because straying away from the visual identity at all can actually undermine the visual identity, and then it creates confusion. It looks shoddy, and again, that's when you kind of have the kind of like suspicion and kind of like trust issues start to creep in at that point. So if you're consistent at all times, it will really help to create a really strong brand. Your other brand elements then that are in your visual identity would be your photography, packaging, for example, if you're a private sector company that produces products. And then also in your visual identity kit, you should have guidelines and templates as well is a really good thing. So for example, on social media, if you have Canva templates, they're really helpful to kind of make sure you're staying on brand. So if you get your graphic designer to create some templates for you, that then you can swap out the information, you can swap out imagery. But again, you're referencing back to your brand guidelines as to whether the imagery is on brand, because again, it needs to be sending out the right message, the right emotion, the right tone of voice, using different imagery. So again, it's like making sure you're on brand with all those key parts. So there's quite a lot within your visual identity. It's not just slapping your logo on something and thinking that's going to work, because it won't. And then how to be authentic. Again, stay on brand. So back to what I was saying a few minutes ago, make sure that your branding is consistent everywhere you use it, and be it online and offline. So that consistency online and offline. So stay on brand. Make sure you're using your visual identity, your right colors, your right fonts, the right imagery. Transparent messaging. So be clear on your messaging. Don't leave it that it's open to misinterpretation or confusion. And also, if you say you're going to do something, do it. I think this is key to kind of, again, fostering that trust. So if it's a competition, for example, for a products based company, that if you're doing a giveaway, make sure you did a giveaway when you're doing it, and then you show who got it. Try and be as transparent with what you're doing, and show behind the scenes as well, because I really think that, and the people that work in the company, again, that really helps with that transparency, and for people to trust and buy into who you are and what you do. So in both sectors, branding is about building a relationship with the audience. While private sector branding drives profitability, key, and customer loyalty, public sector branding drives trust, credibility, and public engagement. For both, a strong brand enables long-term success by fostering loyalty, trust, and a positive perception. So at all times, those are the key things you're trying to get, is like loyalty to your product or to your organization, trust in your products or your organization, and also a positive perception of that company, be it the company that you and your products, or also the public sector organization. So that's it from me. Those are my details if anybody wants to reach out or has any more questions after this live. If there's anything you want to chat to me about, or if you're interested in finding out a bit more about what I do, then please reach out. Those are my details. So thank you so much. Back to you, Joanne.
That was super, Janine. Thank you so much. And
No problem.
I think we can never be overly reminded about the importance of branding. Like, I've always taken branding important in business, because all of the factors that you talk about, it's the first impression when you're not around. So I have a couple of questions on the back of the presentation, and we can have a conversation. And in trust, I always say that trust is the #1 currency in the digital age. You can say that you're anyone online, right? You can, you know, the screen isn't going to refuse, you know, typing in any sort of words. You'll often find that in scammy sites or in scammy social networks, you know, people don't invest in the brand. And so that trust factor is absolutely huge. And what I was kind of amazed about is how the psychology of color, the psychology of the hierarchy of font, the spacing, all of that plays in. So, you know, your level of expertise, you know, advising some the power of branding is invaluable. But would you agree, now than ever on social, we need brands to step out because they've got the trust factor?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, it's a lot of branding is quite subliminal. You see, I think that's why people don't see the value of it. They don't realize how they're engaging with things on social media, because the brain is doing it all in the background. So you're making an immediate kind of decision on what you're seeing without you realizing you're doing it. So it's really key, and things can go really wrong on social media for brands as well if they're not careful. Because again, it's a very quick perception. It's like, and you know what it's like when you're seeing your feed, all these images are being projected at you all the time. And if you're on brand, it's that key recognition. It's like straight away your brain is going, that's the company I know. That's a product I want to buy. So if you're on brand, and they also know it's from you, as you said, it's like that trust thing. So they're not confusing you with somebody else. And if you're on brand and you look professional, it's really going to help people trust you as a brand, because they're going to say, this is a professional company. They know what they're doing. Look at the effort they're putting into their branding. They must be putting all that effort into their company as well. So I want to buy from them, or I want to work with them, or I want to contact them because I need help with this, or I need help with that. So yeah, trust is so huge at the minute. And yeah, it's a scary word out there, the day that's in it. Social media, it can be very scary. So I think branding is a key kind of tool in your toolkit when you're using to project your information on social media. Getting your branding right and consistent is key.
And what I talk about a lot in terms of teaching people on great social media, I talk about the digital real estate that exists for their brand. So your profile photo, your header photo, if you're doing a carousel, if you're doing a video frame, and all of these individual pieces of digital real estate need their own attention, right? So you cannot just take something that's been printed, or designed for print, and then just, copy and paste it over. There's a lot of thought that goes into the digital presence and how that looks as well.
Yeah, 100%, because the way you consume something in a print form and the way you consume something online is totally different. Like if you take like private sector companies, maybe that are producing products, when you're purchasing from them in bricks and mortar, then you're really engaging with the packaging. So you're going into a shop and you're looking at a shelf and you're seeing their packaging amongst all these other packages, and you're making a decision on, why do I want to pick this product over this product? And again, there's so many subliminal cues that come into play. So color being one, because color is creating a message when people realize it or not. Color psychology, I could talk on that for an hour alone, is like, it really kind of gives people a perception of what the product is about. So it's like the green for go, the red for stop. And again, color is also cultural. So you need to be very careful. I'm going off tangent here, but just online, if you're a global company, you really need to make sure that you're well informed on how color is interpreted worldwide. For example, like red here in Europe, I suppose, would be seen as kind of like fiery, dangerous, powerful. It can have positives, or there's positives and negative kind of associations with all colors. But I suppose red, the danger one, is a key kind of one that we learn from children, that red is danger. And like the big red button, like the end stream here is now in red, and it's like, don't touch the red button. But whereas in China, red is a really positive color, and it's seen as in Asia, red it's not a dangerous color. It's actually really positive, and kind of, I think it's seen with wealth and joy, and I think they use it in weddings. So yeah, you need to be very careful, and when you're using color psychology, to make sure that your colors are being communicated properly, depending on where your target market is. So that's a key thing. But back to what I was saying about going into a shop and picking up looking at a product, the key thing you're going to look at is the packaging. You're going to look at what the information is, how clearly it's communicated. And again, this all happens in the brain in seconds. Like, it's really fast. And then if something catches your eye and intrigues the brain, you're going to then more likely pick it up. And at that point, then that's where the packaging, the tangible part of the packaging comes into play. So things like how it feels, the texture, the quality of the box or the quality of the packaging. And then when you purchase the product, then it's how it performs, how the componentry performs when you're using the product. So there's all these different touch points that you really have to take into play, that we do on a daily basis, that none of us really realize we're engaging with until you really kind of think about it, because it's done subliminally. And the same thing with information. If you're trying to get key information across, there's a hierarchy of how you show color, how you show text. Like things like using all caps, if there's a lot of text, is a bad idea, because the brain can't understand all caps as quickly as it can upper and lowercase text, because it's the negative space within the text that allows the brain to interpret all the letters together to make up the words. Whereas if it's all caps, you have like that boxy square shape, so it's harder for it to see like different letters. They all look more similar in an all caps kind of situation. But the thing with all caps as well is it also sends a message of things like it's important, like you need to pay attention to this. So that's why maybe keywords could be in caps, but not full sentences, and definitely not paragraphs. That's a desperate no-no. So the example of the NHS with their use of all caps was really bad because it took a lot longer for the public to understand the information that was being told to them. Whereas if it had been an uppercase and lowercase mix, it would have gone through in seconds, whereas maybe it took 3 times as long for the human brain to understand what was being said in that text. And yeah, so it's so important to make sure you get that right, and you know, so you are hiring somebody that knows about this and knows how to make sure you get it right, than just throwing something in there that, or just pulling it from print, because again, on social media it's a different animal to print. You don't have as much time to consume the information on social media, and maybe not so much if you want a website, you're going there to look, and you're more likely to engage. But again, it's about getting your homepage right and making sure that they're easy, that the homepage really explains and guides the viewer where they want. So when they land on your homepage, they need to be able to find what they're looking for in really quickly, because if they don't, they're just going to bounce off again. So it's making sure that it's clear, informative, easy to understand, and then it directs them to the internal pages that they need to go to find out more information. And this so it's the same with social media. Then it's even quicker. So you really have to be making sure you're getting across your message really quick, but also that the brain is kind of like understanding that this is the company, this is who they are, and that's all done in seconds. So it's knowing how the brain works on a subliminal level when you're coming in terms of design, to make sure you're getting it right, depending on what touch point you're using, whether it be in print, on screen, on web, whatever.
And you know, everything that we see on social media, there can be a design input, like, so if it's a graphic, a carousel, or you can have logo, it can be designed in a way that's really promoting your brand. But you know, you talk about authenticity and being transparent in your messaging, do what you say you're going to do, and people don't like to be overly sold to. And sometimes when things are overly branded on social, it can have the opposite effect. So when is it too much branding on social?
Yeah, I think you need to, like, on social, you need to kind of have maybe different kind of, like, you could have like subsets of your branding for different purposes. So you're not constantly projecting the same thing over and over and over. It's kind of like being subtle with your branding too. So depending on what you're trying to, what message you're trying to get out, or what you're trying to tell the user on the social media, you can have subsets so that can kind of categories almost. So they know when they see that visual and that kind of structure and that template that this is what you're saying. So it's selling a product, and they know when they see that visual that it's maybe something kind of like an affirmation or a little quote, or behind the scenes, a little bit less serious or whatever. So it's kind of like having maybe a suite of templates that you can use to the best purpose of what you're trying to tell the end user, be it like it's like so that you're not overly populating your social media with the same thing over and over. Like your logo would need to be on it. Again, that's just for recognition and for authenticity and for that trust factor, so they know it's you. You should have a brand palette. So for example, you should have colors that you can use interchange. You'd have your key primary colors of your logo, but you should also have like a secondary palette of colors that you interchange. And again, they could have different meanings applied. So you could use this color for this purpose and this color for this purpose in your background color or whatever. So it's like the overall, the overarching, like for example, on your Instagram grid, when you land on it, it should look like you, but it can be interspersed with your imagery. Like, you don't necessarily have to, you can have your logo quite subtle on it. It could be an image of something, as long as the image is on brand, so it suits your tone of voice, and it's projecting the right message. It doesn't necessarily need to be overlaid with a whole pile of other brand elements, as long as that particular brand element is on brand, coupled with your logo, and making sure that any text is using your font style, so that you're not using a mismatch of fonts all over the place, which can look really messy and really hard for when you look at it visually, because what can happen is your brain can be kind of like, it kind of scans and it can be like jumping all over the place. Whereas if it's clear and concise and well laid out, it's easier to digest what you're looking at.
You know, great branding stands the test of time. So it's a real investment, whether you're private sector or public sector, because you can't buy trust, you have to earn it. But you designed our Digital Training Institute logo, and this is over a decade ago. And that's an example of branding that stands the test of time. But also our brand should maybe evolve as the industry evolves, and also as our business evolves too. So what is the kind of perfect frame for looking at giving your brand a bit of an updo?
Right. Well, yeah, you can do like what they'd call like a rebrand. People kind of they would say like, what does that mean? And it can be interpreted in different ways. But if you're doing a rebrand, the one thing I would say to somebody is, because what happens is sometimes when you're starting out, a lot of people don't see the value of good branding, and they don't want to invest in it at the start because they're looking at other things, maybe more tangible things, in their mind that they need to invest their money in. But the key thing with your branding is this, hopefully, as you say, will stand the test of time, because you're really building on it. It's such a huge, crucial part of your whole toolkit of your company, because when you've been in business 10 years, that brand has become so well known and so recognized. To then try and backtrack at that stage to kind of go, oh, we just kind of came up with any kind of basic logo at the start because we don't really have any money to do it, and it did the job at the time. Now you have something that's really well known, really established, maybe is given mixed messaging of what you're trying to project, and then to try and backtrack on that is going to undermine all that hard work. But at the same time, you're torn because you know that you need to maybe change your branding because it didn't really suit the purpose at the time, but at the time you didn't see that. So this is why if you can, I would always stress to people to really invest in it, to get it right at the start, especially for companies maybe that are going to have their logo on products, because to rebrand all those products again is a huge job. It's a huge expense to start rebranding all your products. So yeah, try and get it right. And the other thing is, do not just go in and just get your logo. Say to a graphic designer, I need a logo for this company. My company is this, blah, 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 blah. You really need to kind of draft up like a brand strategy to make sure that you have a clear vision of what the company is, where you want the company to go, what the company is about, who your target market is, your company persona. So like if your company was a person, what would that person be? Who would they be like? So you get into all that kind of like really dig deep into what the company is about, where the company is going, what the company does, what it's going to be like in 10, 20, 30 years time. And hopefully if you can do that and then start developing your logo and your identity, that will carry through for at least half of that time. And then like if you think of all the big brands, they have all gone through like rebrands over time. Like Apple, if you think of Apple, I wish I had the visuals for this now, but Apple's logo at the very start, I can't remember the very, very first one. I know it wasn't like the Apple it is now, but there was lots of colors through it. One of the ones, I think at the maybe early 80s, there was loads of colors through the Apple, and they'd kind of pared it back. Excuse the pun. They pared it back and made it more streamlined, and they just have a very, very basic emblem now that is recognized worldwide. But they still kept the shape of the logo. They've just removed the colors. So this is the thing, when you're doing a rebrand, you have to be really careful about not totally changing your logo. A lot of the big companies out there that do it well, they'll tweak it. So if you're going to tweak it, you're going to either tweak the style of it, or so you retain something, is what I'm trying to say, of the original. So you still have that brand familiarity, and you also drip feed it to your you drip feed it as well to your target market, so they get used to seeing the new brand, so that they can understand that this is the company, but we're rebranding. You just don't get to throw it in there and kind of totally change, because there can be a real kind of lull between the old branding and the new branding, where people are really confused. Who is this? Is that been taken over? Why have they changed the branding? Is like something wrong? The public start to panic a wee bit, like, why? There's that confusion again. So a rebrand needs to be done really well, and really considerately, to make sure you get it right, and because it can actually go very, very wrong. I think it was Gap in America. They rebranded their logo, and it bombed. Within days, I think, maybe 72 hours, they changed it back, because they did it. They totally changed it. Their fans didn't like it, and they really had to pedal back. And I think they'd spent millions on this rebrand that didn't work. So you really have to be careful. So that's why, if you think about it, if you try and get it right at the start, you can save yourself a lot of grief going forward. And then hopefully, if you need to change it, you're only having to tweak it. You're not having to do like a full rebrand that it's completely different. And if you are going to do that, do it in stages. Don't go from A to Z. Try and maybe have like an interim one where you're kind of showing it's evolving over a period of time. And then, but again, that has to be done really slowly, because changing anything up in terms of your branding can really cause consumers and the general public to be very unsettled as to why that's happening. So it has to be done really well and really properly.
A final question then around campaigns. So we're all involved in marketing campaigns, promotional campaigns, seasonal campaigns, and they need their own look and feel. So what is your advice around branding around campaigns?
Okay, well, so campaigns, if you're thinking of your visuals, again, in terms of imagery, make sure that your imagery still has that same tone of voice. So think of the personality of the photograph that you're using. Like if you're a very laid back kind of company that has a sense of humor, bring that into your campaigns. Have it that the visuals are still on that casual kind of friendly feel. Don't suddenly use something really, really, like, for example, a Halloween campaign. If your company is like that kind of feel good factor and happy-go-lucky, and then you throw in this really horrific image for your Halloween campaign, it's really going to throw people and kind of go, what the hell is going on here? So yeah, maybe have something more playful, like a cheeky pumpkin, or something that's a little bit more toned down than kind of just going totally off brand by using something that doesn't fit in your branding. So think very carefully about what imagery you're putting out there. How does the brand campaign fit with the overarching brand guidelines that you have? Because as long as you're still using parts of your branding, like your fonts and your logo. I know people tweak things. For example, at Christmas, they may throw a Santa hat on their logo, or they tweak their logo a wee bit, which is fine. But the key thing is to be really, really careful, because again, changing the color of the branding, adding a component, I think, is a better idea than changing the color. Sometimes you'd see companies and they would change, like for example, my logo there for Halloween, I could have done that in orange, but then that's really confusing people. Why is it orange? I'm used to seeing the green and the blue. But orange to me is it sends a different subliminal message. They might not associate it with Halloween. They may see it somewhere in the future and really confuses them. So because once it's up there in social media, it's there forever, and you don't know where it's going to pop up again. People do a Google search and suddenly it pops up. So that can really, again, kind of undermine and cause confusion as to why there's all these different color alliterations of your logo. So really try not to change the logo color, especially the logo. But you can, bring in other colors, but try and keep it on brand as much as possible. The other thing I would say is, a lot of the time when people are kind of getting their branding at the start, or they're rebranding or whatever it is they're doing, if they're changing their branding, or they're actually originating their branding, sometimes they will try and use what's on trend. And I would tell people not to do that, because that is the one thing actually which will prevent your branding from having that longevity, is going with the trend. You don't need to, it's not fast fashion that we're dealing with here. You want to have something that's going to stand the test of time. And by doing that, you do not want to hop on a trend. Like, it's fine on social media for some of the trends you can do, but I know a lot of people are pedaling back on that and telling people not to hop on trends just for the sake of trends. Because again, in terms of like things like viral reels and stuff like that, because okay, it may get you loads of views and it may go viral, but at the same time, it can undermine the overarching branding. It can again confuse people. With loads of people might see it, but are they your target market? And what is your target market? What message are they getting from you using this trend, as opposed to somebody that's never seen you before? So yes, it might get you new followers or new people, new eyes on your brand, but it can undermine the kind of the loyal followers that are there, that are kind of going, why are they doing this? I don't get this. And again, this kind of comes back to that confusion of mistrust and stuff. So yeah, you need, again, that's another area you need to be careful with, is not hopping on a trend, be it with your branding or with your messaging that you're projecting on your social media.
Janine, so much value in that past hour. Thank you so much. We're going to repurpose this now into a blog post. You'll get the recording as well if you want to put it on your site, and sure, we might as well repurpose it for social as well, and we'll make some clips from it. But your details are on the screen, so definitely if you have a branding need coming up, if you've got a campaign coming up, if Janine has sparked some ideas or concerns about her presentation or our conversation, I can highly recommend her. And happy Halloween, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Joanne. Happy Halloween. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone.